everybody, James Simmers, Culinary Arts Instructor at Moraine Park Technical College with another video how-to on cooking. I'd like to thank somebody first off for the idea about the roast, and today we're going to make the gravy from the pan with the roast. And I'd like to thank Ida Melvin, dear friend, for giving me the idea. If anybody out there has ideas that they'd like to see on cooking videos, please, I'd love to hear them. You can email me at jsimmers@morainpark.edu, and I'll say that again at the end of the video. So right now what we have, we have the drippings for our pan. If you remember, I used an oven-proof saute pan to cook my roast in it. And what we have left, we took the roast out, and what we have left is some of the vegetables that we're roasting in there with the roast for flavor. And there's some meat scraps in there, the onion, the carrot, the chunks of celery. Just a real rough chop on that. And we're gonna leave that in there for now because there's a couple of different ways you can remove it or you can use it to add flavor. And we're gonna do that today, actually, by using a stick blender, although you can use a blender or a food processor if it's easier for you. If you do that method, go ahead and take this out right now, put it in your food processor, make a nice paste out of it, and then I'll tell you when to add it back in the pan, okay? So let's head over to the stove. Okay, so as you can see here, we have our pan on the stove. I got it over a medium heat, okay? And what all of this is in here is flavor, okay? Lots of different kinds of flavor. And if you've ever made a roux, that's basically what we're gonna do. A roux is equal parts shortening, could be butter or whatever, and flour. And what it does is it helps to thicken sauces, and that's how we're going to thicken this today. But some juices also leaked out of that roast as well. So what we want to do is we want to evaporate that because we want to get basically pure oil or shortening in here. We want the fat from the meat. And even like these pieces here, like I said, leave in, those are going to give us a little more fat too. How can you tell? Well, like I said, I have it on about a medium heat, and it's going to start to sizzle a little bit. But you're going to hear it almost really start to sizzle louder, and you can even hear it now. I haven't adjusted the heat or anything. What that is that's the liquid evaporating. And the more liquid we can get out of there, the better it's going to be, and the less likely you are to have a lumpy gravy, which I know a lot of people don't like. A lot of people think it reminds them of home. So now, also I want to point this out because this is fun. You see some of this stuff on the bottom here? That's all flavor. Number one, you're not going to have to scrub the pan because you're doing it right now. And we're getting all that stuff off the bottom and scraping it. So if you do this, you probably don't want to use any kind of a Teflon pan because this metal really helps to get it off. And also you want to be careful with some aluminum pans because you might pick up a little bit of that aluminum flavor. Now you can hear that really starting to sizzle more. We're not going to be able to get all the liquid out of it, but we're going to get as much as we can. And then we're going to add our flour. Now, as far as seasonings, we don't have to do too much because the roast was seasoned and all those seasonings kind of went into this. So we probably won't need to add any salt. We're going to add a little bit of beef base. I'll show you that in a minute. And that's going to help to just fortify the flavor a little bit. It's also going to add a little more salt if we need it. But there's a lot of flavor in this pan right now. And even as we get things more and more brown and more caramelized, it's going to give it even more flavor. Now, here's the funny thing. You notice how it's not sizzling as much now? It's starting to slow down. That's because most liquid is evaporating. And what we have here is primarily oil. Okay, so we don't hear the sizzling anymore of anything, liquid that's caught in that oil. So I think we're about ready. We're going to add just a little bit of garlic, about a teaspoon of chopped garlic, and I like a coarse chop, not real minced. We're just going to stir that around. Now, don't let that garlic burn. You just want to saute it for a few seconds. Then what we're going to do, we're going to reduce our heat. And I'm just going to take some regular all-purpose flour. You can use bread flour too. Really not much of a difference for a roux. There's, of course, some baking. We're just going to sprinkle it over this fat. All right, and we're going to put in just enough to make like a paste, okay? I'm going to add a little bit more in a second. I'm just incorporating this. All right. And what we're going to do, we're going to cook that flour a little bit, and that's going to help us thicken our gravy when we add our broth. Now, if you have real beef stock, fantastic. I don't have that around at home. I guess a lot of chefs probably don't. I don't think most people make their own beef stock. It'd be nice if we could, but it's a pretty long process. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a beef broth base. And this is a brand I use, very inexpensive. But there's another one called Better Than Bouillon. That's really good too. A couple of different kinds. That's Orrington Farms that I use. And it just works out for a lot of different dishes and that. All right, so see how we're getting a paste? We're going to add just a little more flour. Just a little bit. Because we want a nice hearty gravy. All right. Now remember, I reduced the heat. It's on not extremely low, but just a step above very low. Okay? All right. So, see it's getting pasty and stuff? And what we're doing now is we're just going to let it cook a little bit, and that's going to bring out the flavors of the meat, of course, into the roux. And also, it's going to help aid the thickening process, okay, as if we cook that flour a little bit. All right? So, turning up the heat just slightly. I have a new stove and I'm getting used to it. So, turn that up a little bit, but you're still on low, okay? All right, so here we are, right there. Okay, now we're going to add, this is what's going to give it a little bit of extra flavor. Tastes a little different than some other gravies that you may have had. We're going to add just a little bit of red wine to that, okay? We're going to stir that in, and this is going to get really tasty because what's happening is that roux is going to thicken the red wine. I got purple paste there. All right, and cook that a little more because you want to cook the alcohol out of the wine. Really, if we don't do that, it tends to give kind of an off flavor to the sauce, to the gravy, if you will. By the way, little trivia, difference between gravy and sauce. Gravy is made from pan drippings. Sauce can be anything. So a gravy is a sauce, but a sauce isn't necessarily a gravy. All right, so we got that cooking a little bit. Now what we're going to do is, if you have beef stock, this is the point you're going to add the beef stock. If you don't have beef stock, I'm going to add some water to this. Okay, like so. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the beef base I was talking about. You don't want to add too much because this is pretty much salt-based. So I'm adding about a teaspoon to this. You can add more. You know, when you taste it when it's done, you can add a little bit more if you'd like. Okay, we're going to increase the heat slightly because we're standing right here. You know, the cool thing about this too, and I mentioned a little bit earlier, is that this really helps to clean the pan. So instead of like soaking and scrubbing a pan, most of this stuff is going to come off and you're basically just going to have to wash this pan. It should be very simple. All right, so we're getting a lot of color in there, and that's from all of those beef little pieces and little pieces of carrots and the burned edges. And like I said, that is flavor, so you really want to keep that. Whoops, I spilled some. Guess it's not a new stove anymore. So we're just going to keep stirring that, and eventually it's going to come up to a simmer. Okay, and when it comes to that point, do you see how thick it's getting? Okay, now you can use a whisk if you want. Some people are more comfortable. Wooden spoon would work here. As long as you add the liquid like I showed you while you know the roux is still hot, you don't see any lumps in here other than the lumps we want, like pieces of meat and things like that. Okay, get a little thicker. If it's too thick for you, you can add a little bit more broth to it. We may have to do that. As it heats up more, it's going to get thicker and thicker. So we're doing that now. We're going to add a little bit more liquid to this. Just like so. Now, increase the heat quite a bit. You can go as high as you're comfortable with at this point. If you get real high, you don't want to burn it. If you're just, you know, a little more comfortable cooking slowly. Now look at that, isn't that nice? Okay, so what we're going to do now is turn this heat down. This is where you have to be very careful. I'm going to use a stick blender in here. My stick blender is heat resistant, so it's going to kind of chop up some of those pieces in there. It might splash. I hope it doesn't splash my camera. If it does, I'm probably going to stop and just let you imagine what the rest is like. But in case you don't know what a stick blender is, this is a stick blender. We have ones for commercial use in the restaurant at school. But of course, this is one, just a Hamilton Beach one, very inexpensive. And we're just going to turn it on. Now, like I said, be careful because this can, you know, splash up on your camera. And then we're just going to take those pieces and we're just going to mush them up a little bit, okay? I am getting some splashes, so you get the general idea. If you're not comfortable using the stick mixer, and like I said, I'm not going to go all the way here because I like to save my phone if you don't mind. But if you aren't comfortable using the stick blender, you don't have a stick blender, you can easily put this into a food processor or put this stuff into a food processor, and then right when you add the liquid, add this stuff back to it, okay? If you put it in a blender, you want to make sure of one thing, that you wait for it to cool. Do not blend this while it's still hot. Look at that, we have a really nice thick gravy there. And we're going to taste it, make sure it's okay. And now you can do this with anything. You can do this with roast pork. You know, we did it with roast beef. You can do it with roast turkey, roast chicken. And you just taste. And that wine gives it just a little hint of, I don't know how to put it. It's something deeper than the beef itself. So it also helps give it a lot of color too. And if you look, this does not look like canned gravy. And sorry, I can't show you, but it does not taste like canned gravy either. It just has lots and lots of flavor from that roast, from the drippings and the pan. And like I said about cleaning the pan, just take a rubber spatula. You can see it's clean. Now remember what that looked like before? All that's in your sauce now. So now you know how to make a pan gravy. If you don't have a pan that's oven proof, go ahead and just use your regular roasting pan. You can put it right on your burner. I have a long burner on this one. It would work perfectly on that if you want to use that. But I hope you all try this at home. Unbelievably good compared to canned products and instant products. So have some fun with it. And as always, not only do I need ideas from our videos, but you can also send questions to me. I'd love to hear from you. jsimmers@morainpark.edu. Until next time, we'll talk again. Thanks. Bye.